There's always a mixed perception towards indie games. Many people love the idea of small independent studios going out and creating their own passion projects, while others are weary of them due to their wavering quality and their lack of features. I'm neither here nor there, but I will admit I don't buy many indie games without prior knowledge of them, because, let's face it, for every 1 Cupheads or Shovel Knight, there's about 8 Vroom in the Night Skies. But when an indie game is good, people will be sure to let you know, and that's how I heard about Celeste. Celeste is a 2D platformer developed by Matt Makes Games and released in January of 2018. And that's pretty much all I know. Sorry. I didn't play their 2013 game Towerfall. In fact, all I knew about this game prior to this review is that it's supposed to be good and the artwork is cute. That's about it. Ah well, I prefer going in blind anyway. So, let's take a look at Celeste. Oh. Yeah, that's right. This is a digital game. Yay! I sure do feel like I own something. When Celeste starts, we are introduced to our main character Madeline. Madeline has decided that she wants to climb Celeste Mountain, but she isn't exactly sure why she wants to do it. An old woman who lives on the mountain warns her that the mountain changes people, but Madeline ignores the old woman's warning and continues on. After climbing a short distance, she decides to rest. She soon falls asleep and has a dream where a dark version of herself breaks free from a mirror and tries to persuade Madeline to abandon her climb. But when Madeline refuses, the dark part of her begins to attack. Madeline wakes up wondering if what she saw was a dream, but soon realizes that the dark part of her is very real and is willing to do whatever it takes to stop Madeline from reaching the summit. Celeste tells an engaging story that blends seamlessly with fun and addictive gameplay. The entirety of Celeste is a constant climb upward. You take control of Madeline and your only assets are her abilities. She can climb, jump, and dash. That's it. She only has 3 moves. Mastering these abilities is essential to progressing up the mountain, and you will fall in love with the wonderful simplicity of it all. Now, when you hear simple, it's easy to assume that Celeste's gameplay is shallow, but these limitations are in service of some of the most fantastic level design I've ever seen. From the beginning, the game guides the player on how to master Madeline's abilities, but not with words. It does it through the level design. One of the first walls the player tries to climb is too long, and this lets the player know that she has a limited amount of stamina. Everything is introduced incrementally. There are optional strawberries scattered throughout each level. Collecting these require the player to adapt to Madeline's abilities even more and subtly make you an even better player. While Madeline's moves never really change, the levels around her are constantly evolving. Each level introduces new stage mechanics that you need to master in order to progress, and all of them are incredibly fun and prevent the gameplay from ever feeling stale. There are reoccurring elements that pop up in multiple levels like springs, there are platforms that only move with Madeline's dash, platforms that move the second she touches them, floating diamonds that refill her stamina, and a bunch of others. And then there are stage-specific mechanics. There are star blocks that let you glide through them at high speeds, there's wind that affects your jumps, feathers that turn you into a flying ball of light, and a shit ton of things you can bounce off of. Almost every screen is full of platforms, power-ups, and they are designed in a way where you have to be super precise with your jumps or else you're a goner. And that is one of the first things you will realize about Celeste. You're going to die. You're going to die a lot. You're going to die more than Kenny, Sean Bean, Krillin, and Yule combined. Celeste is very much in the same vein of Super Meat Boy. There are so many things in this game that will kill you in one hit. You'll hit a spike, you'll be blasted by a boss, or you may just fall off the stage. You're going to die no matter how hard you tried not to. Yet, death in Celeste was never rage-inducing for me. It could be because of how quick the respawn time is, but I also feel that the charm of the game was a big contributing factor. The frequency of death in this game adds to the feeling of success you get when you overcome a difficult screen with precise timing and button inputs. You just feel like a badass when you complete them, which is good because you'll be in a constant state of panic as you fly through the air dodging obstacles. And this is where Celeste gameplay complements its story in a way that sets it apart from being just another good game. The constant feeling of panic and confusion the player gets from the gameplay is exactly how Madeline feels. The game tells a surprisingly engaging story of Madeline's struggle with depression and anxiety. The main antagonist of the game is the dark part of Madeline, all of her faulty character traits embodied in this controlling, doubtful, angry version of herself. This isn't even the only physical embodiment of Madeline's feelings. There's an entire level in a mirror that's a manifestation of her own internal demons, and it's full of death traps, mutated monsters, and warped music. Madeline's climb up this mountain is subtly a way to prove something to herself and a way to keep herself out of her own head. She says she keeps thinking about the past and dumb things that don't matter anymore. Madeline is figuratively and literally fighting with herself for the majority of the game. Even when she thinks she's figured everything out, she's proven wrong and has to start all over again, which is a sentiment once again echoed by the gameplay and all the failures that the player will encounter during their own climb up Celeste Mountain. The game tells a real and relatable story about accepting our own negative traits. Throughout this climb, we can see that Madeline is brave, honest, determined, resilient, and oh my god, I just want to hug you! And Madeline isn't the only character whose internal struggle we learn about. At the start of the game, Madeline meets a fellow climber named Theo. On the surface, he seems like a cool, charismatic hipster, but as the game progresses, we learn that he too has his demons. Theo feels inferior compared to his younger sister and has no idea what he wants in life. I didn't think I would like Theo at first, but I grew to enjoy him almost as much as Madeline. His constant optimism is kind of infectious and a good contrast to Madeline's somewhat more reserved attitude. I think my favorite thing about Theo is that he mentions at one point that he has an Instapics account and gives Madeline his username, and it turns out that it's a real Instagram account full of bonus artwork that chronicles his life before, during, and after the climb, and it just adds a little bit more to making these characters feel real and relatable. Watching these two bond over their climb is just fantastic, and I love that the game never implies any sort of cheap romance between them. These are just two people who grow and bond as friends, and it feels perfect just the way it is. Everything about Celeste's story is simply wonderful, and I was so forgiving of some of the frustrating stages when the story came back in to remind me why I love these characters. I felt so much more emotion for this pixelated faceless character than I ever did for this realistic looking 3D character, and at no point did anything feel overdramatic. In fact, it would be so easy to ignore or miss some of these subtleties, but this is a game where the deeper you dig, the more you find. I would be satisfied if the game just stopped there, but there is so much optional content in the game as well. I already mentioned the strawberries, and while they don't affect anything major, I would still advise collecting them if you want a satisfactory ending. Plus, they're just fun to go after. There's also a stripped down version of Celeste on the Pico 8 which you can find in the game. It's basically the original demo of the game, but without Madeline's climbing ability, so you have to be even more creative with this version. I liked this, but I wish there was a benefit to reaching the summit in this version. The biggest optional item that players will go after are the cassette tapes hidden in each level. These unlock the B-side stages, which are even harder versions of the levels you've played, and they require such perfect timing and button pressing. This is perfect for speedrunners or people who really want a challenge, but it wasn't really my thing. Maybe because it was pretty ruthless. I died over 1,000 times on my first B-side. It was brutal. But if that weren't enough, there are also C-sides, which are shorter but way harder. I was just not ready for these. Of course, we've established that Celeste is a challenging game, but you can tell the developers to go fuck themselves by using assist mode, which adds features to make the game overall easier. However, you will get a message where they suggest that you don't use it on your first playthrough, as the difficulty of the regular levels is imperative to your gaming experience, and I strongly agree. Use assist modes on the B-sides or C-sides if you want to use them at all. Even with assist mode, you're still going to die on these levels because they are just that tough. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, that's fine. You don't have to. It's all just a nice bonus. The closest thing to negative criticism I have for this game is that the graphics aren't as good as they could be. But don't you even think for a second that that means I don't like them, because I do, quite a bit. but I think it's fair to expect more when compared to other indies. I don't even care though, especially when the character portraits are so nicely drawn. The cutesy art style they went with really adds to the character expressions. I love the little portraits you get after completing a level. My favorite thing is watching Madeline and Theo take selfies together and seeing their friendship evolve with every photo. I also got a kick of how the voice acting is basically the same as an adult on the Peanuts. I don't know, I found it pretty endearing. The music in this game is pretty good as well. Many of the tracks sound like tunes you'd hear on the Sega Genesis. There's a lot of techno mixed with good ambience and atmospheric pianos. I like the music, but none of it was anything I'd seek out. It was pleasant background noise, which is totally fine. The biggest standout of the soundtrack is actually hidden in the level where Madeline has to fight her inner demons. This level takes place inside a mirror, and if you reverse the audio, you will hear
just look in the mirror and don't know who I'm looking at or who's looking at me. I think a lot about where that train of thought is going. It's not always a good place, and that scares me. I don't like scaring myself.
What a fantastic and clever use of sound design. The fact that this backwards audio takes place in a mirrored level is just so smart. Celeste is just a breathtaking game. It transcends being a game and becomes an experience that just gets better and better the more thought I put into the story and the gameplay. It was able to invoke feelings in me that I'd only felt from games like Majora's Mask or Final Fantasy VII, and that is one of the biggest compliments I could ever give. And while this game can be limited in terms of variety, it makes up for it with its wonderful story, relatable characters, and fantastic level design. The final score for Celeste is a 10 out of 10. It's one of the most perfect games I've played in a while. And at only $20? This game is a no-brainer. Hell, I got it for $13 on sale on the Switch's eShop. The biggest tragedy with Celeste is that it's stuck in the digital realm. It got a physical release with limited run games, but their website is sold out, and going to eBay is going to put a pretty big dent in your wallet. And as much as I love this game, I personally wouldn't pay over $40 for a physical version. It's such a shame. I really hope Limited Run Games does another release cycle for this game because it's worth it. Plus, there's supposedly more levels coming out this year, and I can't wait to revisit this game once they arrive. Celeste is a shining example of why we should still support indie developers because they will give you more even though they have less. Which is the exact opposite of these cunts. Hey guys, if you enjoy my content, then you should follow me on Twitter, where I post channel updates and information on upcoming videos. You can find the link in the description. Thanks for watching.